Premed office hours for 2025. This is our first episode in 2025. My name is
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. That's it. Yay. My name is Dr. Ryan Gray, founder of Medical School Headquarters, MAPT, host of the Premed Years, written some books, all that good stuff. Joining me today, first and foremost, Dina Golini, former senior admissions officer at Stanford School of Medicine, former assistant director of advising at Brown University, Warren Alpert Medical School. Dina, how you doing, my friend?
I'm well, thank you. Excited to be here.
Freezing in sunny Florida.
Well, now it's like 72, so now we're back up to normal. But this morning was like put on the heat weather. We're not used to that here.
Yeah, burning off all the cobwebs and the heaters and stuff.
I know. As long as it's sunny, that's all that matters to me.
All that matters.
Yeah.
Speaking of sunny, whenever you go outside with him, you know it's sunny. The sun reflecting off his dome. Reverend Dr. James Scott Wright. I hope you put some sunscreen on there. I had my first potential skin cancer scare. Came back as precancerous, thankfully. Not
good. Yeah.
I have a big chunk of skin missing off my arm.
Yeah, been there, done that. Mine was a squeamish. What is it? Squamous cell. Yeah.
SCC.
Yes.
Yeah. Not to be confused with SEC, which is obviously the best conference for football and basketball.
Yes, this is true. And there's only one SEC team that is in the 4 of the playoffs at this point, which is Hook'em Horns. Texas.
Targeting. That's all I'll say. Reverend Dr. James Scott Wright, former director of admissions at UC Southwestern, retired executive director, TMDSAS. My microphone is not working. It's echoing.
Yeah.
I don't think the microphone in front of you is working.
Yeah, the one in front of you isn't on.
Let's see.
What would you do without us to point that out? See?
I know, right?
Even Scott picked up on it.
Ooh, in my heart of hearing this.
Let's see. Just the one I don't want. How's that?
Cool.
Oh, yeah.
Now you're back. Yes.
Now there's lag, so I'll figure it out. My camera's all messed up now. Oh well, we'll make it work. Again, I was mentioning to you, Dina, I'm on a new computer, so all my settings are just not right. But wah. That is just how it is. Oh well. We are here for the next 51 minutes to answer your questions. So hopefully you have some good ones coming our way. Let's go ahead and jump in. Silence. Does a letter of intent have impact on a student being accepted? Scott, yay, nay, maybe not.
I think it's not out of the realm of possibilities, but I would say it helps the admissions committee, particularly the admissions officers, to, when I think the biggest impact that it has is when there is they get to pulling people off the waiting list, and they know they need to fill a place in their class or 2 or 3 or whatever. And so when they look at groups of applicants, then they might see that, okay, this applicant has, sent us a letter of intent and seems to be sincere or whatever. So I think in that case, it could potentially have some impact, but I think in a lot of ways, it really adds to the mix of things, but in and of itself probably doesn't have a huge impact.
Yeah. Yes. All right. And then there's always the kind of anecdotal stuff where students like, I sent a letter of intent and the next day I had my acceptance. Yeah. I'm like, right. Okay, maybe.
Yeah.
Coincidence.
Depends on the school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially, some schools are worried about, filling the class. But again, I agree with what Scott said. It's usually more effective once it comes time to pulling people off the wait list.
Yeah.
And then some schools, it like doesn't matter because everybody would commit to go there anyway. So,
Right.
right?
Thank you for a
Yep.
statement of obviousness.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Good luck, Osant. Dewa, hello there. After applying, I worked as an interpreter for immigration and USCIS. Is that suitable to send an update to schools? My application revolves around immigrants and language barriers. Dina, is one of those things, right? After applying, they worked, so potentially not on the application.
Right.
Update, not update.
I mean, if it's your intent to send update letters to schools, then this is something that I think is valid that I would include. I think that students maybe have an idea in their head that they send an update and there are a bunch of elves on computers like updating everything, like reading your letter and updating and adding, and that doesn't happen. Like the letter is going to get added to your file, and then if you're up again for review or reconsideration, then they'll take that into consideration. But if you've already been reviewed, it's not like someone's going to say, this person sent an update letter, so now let's re-review them. Like that doesn't, but if you're intending on sending an update, then to me, this is a valid update.
Yeah. To a school that accepts updates. It's always
yes, you have to
caveat.
check MSR and ask.
Yes. Follow the rules of engagement, so to speak.
Yes.
Good luck, Dewa. Continuing on the update train. Is it too late? No. Again,
No.
potentially. Depends on why you're sending it and if the school accepts them, all those things.
Mm-hmm.
All right. John Peter, Happy New Year, MSHQ team. My question is if it is worth mentioning a quick switch to medicine as a, quote, red flag statement in my personal statement if I applied to nursing schools in November and plan to apply this cycle. So, Scott, I'm assuming John's saying they applied to nursing school and now all of a sudden they want to go to medical school. Are they planning to drop out of nursing school to go to medical school? I don't know. What?
Yeah, I'm sort of confused, but I would say, John Peter, no, I wouldn't mention it. I mean, the chance that they would find out that you've applied to nursing school is pretty low, and you may have this switch and stuff, but I don't know. It's a little confusing, kind of, if you're in nursing school or if you just applied. And so I'm unclear about the details, but I would say it could be a red flag, so I would just not mention it. It seems to me to be, but I'm a little confused.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm confused too.
Yeah. So, John, you want to send us an update? Let us know what that looks like. Stronger Than Darkness got into my top choice med school thanks to you and your team. Greatly appreciate everything you do.
Woohoo!
Awesome. Congrats.
That's great.
Love it. So John Peter writing back, sorry to clarify, I just applied and I'm not in nursing school now.
Okay.
Yeah. So they don't need to know that you applied to nursing school.
There's no reason to mention that.
Yeah. Good luck. And then for schools, maybe that he's applying to medical school where he maybe also applied to nursing school, like they're not going to talk to each other.
There's very little overlap.
Yep.
Yeah.
A tool. Hello, MSHQ team. I received multiple medical school acceptances. Congrats. But none include merit scholarships. Since cost is a key factor in my decision, what's the best way to inquire about scholarships? Yeah, Dina, this is a big kind of maybe misconception about medical schools and scholarships. Talk about that.
Yep.
Medical school is not applying to college 2.0, where you get an acceptance from, you're applying as a high school student to college, you get an acceptance, and that merit money offer is often in the acceptance letter. That doesn't happen in medical school. Most medical schools don't even send out financial aid offers or merit or anything like that until April. It's a very late process for financial aid. So just know that. And a lot of schools have separate applications for merit. If they do have merit scholarships, separate applications. So 2 examples. One, I'll use Stanford. They have the Knight Hennessy Scholarship, and that's a separate application. It's for all graduate students, due in October, totally separate, right? Another, I know after you've been admitted and commit to a school like Georgetown, they'll send out information on how you can apply for certain scholarships. So I think a lot of schools wait until you've committed, and then they say, here, like, these are some scholarships you're eligible for and you can apply. But it's not like undergrad where based on your, stats and your metrics, you're going to get like 60 grand. It just doesn't work that way. But you can call financial aid and you can talk to them and just ask all these questions, right?
Yep. Congrats on multiple acceptances. That's the key part. The hard part's over. Now there's just loans if the money doesn't come. And that's
and I was just going to mention for a tool, don't expect a huge amount of offering.
Yep.
There's very limited merit scholarships at most medical schools, and so I don't go into it with the expectation that you're going to get all these money thrown at you, and that just doesn't really happen that much.
Do you think there's some, right? I think everything in life is somewhat dictated by pretty simple economic principles, right? These students want to go to medical school, right? To go on and have a career. Therefore, medical schools don't really need to throw a lot of money at them because there's going to be a seat that's going to be filled anyway. And so if you're only going to a medical school because they're paying you, they just don't need to do that. I don't know.
That's right. And, I just saw a news story or something that either they're changing it or it's in the process of where medical school debt will not be included in your credit score.
Interesting.
I just saw that recently. But I can't remember if it's a done deal or if it's proposed or whatever. But so I thought that was kind of interesting.
How about we figure out a way to reduce med school debt?
Right.
Hey, we'll let you take on more debt. We're going to ignore the debt.
Reporting. Yeah.
Oh man, that's exactly what doctors don't need. Like, you want to get a Mercedes Benz because you're a doctor now? No worries. Let's try to avoid that. Good resource for people. The White Coat Investor is a website out there and podcasts and stuff for high income healthcare professionals. So good place to start for pre-meds, to start learning about this money stuff. One of my favorite books of all time, I Will Teach You to Be Rich, which is a very sleazy headline for a very good book, to start learning some simple financial stuff. All right. Let's keep rocking. I don't know. Some part of me wants to talk about, we'll see if someone brings it up, the whole NYU thing. We'll see if someone brings it up, but we'll keep going here. Ham, just wanted to say thank you to all three. Your advice means so much to me, and I've learned so much from your videos and mock interviews. Hope the best. Thanks, Ham.
Hey, Ham. Awesome.
All right. Oh, and now everyone's being thankful this morning. Thank you. Thank you, Pop. Thankful and grateful for all you do. I used your mock interview training and camped under these videos all the time during my app cycle. I'm now a first-year med student. Awesome.
That's awesome.
Love it.
Woohoo.
All right. Angeli Hill. Should I apply to medical school with a 3.6 GPA as a URM? I am a sophomore and right between a 3.5 and 3.6, hoping to get to a 3.6 by the end of my junior year. No MCAT yet. Angeli, this is one where I like to say it's impossible to really give you good advice here because the number, there's so much that goes into this number. If you go create a free mapped account, you can enter in all of your grades and start to see trends. And if you don't have an account yet, during the free trial of Mapped Pro, you can actually chat with us and go, hey, I put in all my grades. Then we can really dive into the individual data points and look at each semester and really help you understand what we're looking at. All right. Starbright. Question about a website Miss Dina has mentioned before regarding how to find out more info. Oh, they're bringing up some old stuff.
I love it.
Yeah.
That would be a CHNA, a Community Health Needs Assessment, which you can look up for any city or town in the United States. It's run every few years by the government, the Department of Health, Public Health. So if you see one, if you look up like CHNA Detroit, you might see one from like 2022. They take a sample of the population to assess the top priorities for health needs. And it breaks down everything in terms of demographics, like mortality rates, income levels. They're great to help you write secondaries, and they're great to help prep you for interviews.
We should put those links on like on our secondary database for all the schools.
Yeah.
Like a link to this.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. We should do that. Yeah, they're so
it's a great resource.
They're so helpful. Such a great resource.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Great question.
Starlight. Someone's been paying attention.
Yeah, I love it.
Woohoo! Way to go, Starlight.
Dion. Hello, MSHQ team. I'm currently navigating my pre-med journey as a mother of two, a wife, and an active duty Marine with 9 years of service. Amazing. I volunteer as much as I can in programs that I am truly passionate about. My concern is that my volunteer hours may not be enough compared to other applicants. Is there a minimum amount of volunteer hours and shadowing time that is considered favorable? Scott, the big assumption here is that Dion will be compared to peers versus potentially just compared to herself.
Right. That's right.
Talk about that.
Well, that's what I was thinking. You know, Dion, what they're doing in the process is that there is, you know, some level of comparison with other applicants or with standards that particular medical school has, and that they've historically said, you know, this is kind of what we see or what we expect or whatever. But the most that they're doing is really looking at who are you and what is your story. And you know, what constraints do you have on your time? I mean, they're going to see obviously that you're, you know, Marine and that you're involved in doing all the stuff that the Marines do, that you're a mom and that you're, you know, have a family and all of that. And so that's going to be that's going to give context for understanding who you are, what you've done. And so I think the most important thing to remember is that you do need, you know, some volunteer hours in terms of community involvement. And that's great that you're doing that. And I really encourage that you're doing it within the things that you're passionate about. That's great. And shadowing, I think, is you know, maybe less important, but I think you do need to have some shadowing hours. But there's not a number that I think that we can attach to these things. The more important thing is how you talk about them in the narrative of your application, what you're saying about what you're doing, what you're getting out of it. The reflective quality of those narratives is really the important part of it. And if you will take good care to really dive into some real deep, meaningful language about, you know, what you're getting out of these things and what it's doing to you and what you're learning from them, that's what's going to be a lot more impactful than you know, I did 200 hours in this, or I did 100 hours in that, or whatever. So within the context of understanding that you do have to do these things, I think it's less important the number of hours than it is the way that you talk about them in the application.
Yeah. I'll just add a conversation that I was involved in with the director, former director of admissions at, I won't name the school, at a medical school. I was there for a conference, and the director of admissions, myself, and a non-traditional student who had driven from like Indiana down to Florida we're talking. And this non-traditional student, very similar situation. Hey, I'm a non-trad. I work, I do this, I do that. And the director of admissions made it very clear. We, number one, value non-traditional applicants, and we appreciate that they have different experiences. And so I think that's the number one, right, for anyone thinking about this process, is if you have some unique parts of your application, right, being an active duty Marine and being a parent and a wife and whatever, and you are concerned about that, the schools that value it will find ways to value it in their admissions process.
Yep.
And there will be schools that don't value it, and they won't value it in the admissions process, and that's okay. And so for you, Dion, I think the biggest thing to understand is you are you. You've been through your experiences. You have your life. You put that, right? That's our mission, and our philosophy with the application is telling your best story, not trying to appease each and every medical school, because that's impossible. And then putting your story forward, the schools that will value your non-traditional journey will find ways to raise your application above other people's.
Well said.
Well said. Yep.
Go for it. All right. Stephen, currently have multiple acceptances, but my choice of school, top choice of school, my choice of school has me on waitlist. What should I do, and how long should I send an update letter? All right. So
depends on the
very
school.
confusing sentence here. So multiple acceptances, but their top choice, they're still waitlisted. What can they do? Dina, this is where I am like, a letter of intent is really, hey, I have multiple acceptances, but I really want to come to your school.
If they allow it.
If
right?
they allow it.
Like say you're waitlisted at like UCSD. They don't allow anything until like May.
Yep.
So I mean, it just depends on the school. If they'll take a letter of intent, then this is a perfect opportunity to send it if you would commit to go there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And just make sure for everyone that's sending a letter of intent, that language is very clear in the beginning of the letter. Yeah. Like, I'd like to thank the admissions committee for placing me on the wait list, continuing to consider my candidacy. I'm writing to let you know that if offered admission, I would commit to attend. Yep. Like, don't put it somewhere in the middle of a letter like this.
First thing,
no one can see it. And when you upload it, or if you email it, make sure it's in the subject line, or you label the PDF letter of intent that it's very clear. You know, so that's all you can do, and follow the rules of the school, right? Yep.
Is the subject line of please, 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 please? Is that clear?
Pick me.
That's funny.
There was one. Ramita, a Texas resident. Should we expect any interviews now, or just emails for rejections? Scott, we're past pre-match offer timeline.
There's except for the match, there's not going to be any more interviews. Or now there is a very, very, very remote possibility that if a school didn't match enough students or anything, or they're not happy with their match, there's some weird things that could go on that might give them the need to interview a few more people, but that's not normal. So I would say, Ramita, that there will be no, the likelihood is no more interviews.
Yep. All right. Our friend, I won't say her name, but I know who this is. Vanity Nutrition here. She's part of Application Academy. Speaking of which, sorry, we'll come back to you. Applicationacademy.com/preview. I'll put up a link here in a second. next week, we're running a preview of Application Academy because it's kind of confusing. What is group coaching? What does that look like? Will I get any value out of it? So next week, we're doing a preview run of Application Academy and jumping in on January 20th, our first session for this new cohort. Very different syllabus this new year. 2 advisors every session, minus illness or sickness or whatever, but 2 advisors every session. This first cohort is Monday and Wednesday, some varying times throughout in case you can't make one of them. So yeah, go to applicationacademy.com/preview to check that out, and applicationacademy.com to sign up. And Vanity Nutrition, if you want to add a little tidbit on any value, if any, that you've gained from Application Academy, let us know. All right. Been waitlisted at the one school that I was invited at to interview. I've been very engaged with another school, my top choice. A letter of intent to the waitlist school seems disingenuous. What should I do? Yeah. I'm a fan of letters of intent. And it's not a rule, but I'm a fan of letters of intent when you have an acceptance to another school, because then it's less desperation and more, I am choosing you, right? And not, please choose me. So yeah, any thoughts here? Sending a letter of intent to a school, even though it's not their top choice school, but it sounds like they haven't been interviewed by their top choice school.
I would send a strong. Oh, go ahead, Scott.
No, go ahead, Dina.
I would send a strong continued interest letter. I mean, I've had students that have sent it just doesn't say letter of intent. It's just, I'm expressing my strong continued interest in attending your school. I mean, I know someone that sent that on a Thursday a few cycles ago to Georgetown and got off the wait list on a Monday.
That's awesome.
And it wasn't a letter of intent. So I think start there with the waitlist school, and just where there's nothing like binding in terms of language, because you don't know if you'll even get an interview at the other school.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's great that you've been really engaged. But then if you get off if you send a letter of intent and you get off the wait list and then you get an interview, it's kind of disingenuous.
Yeah. I have put in a good word for you, my friend, with the my friend who's part of the admissions committee at the other school. So hopefully, unfortunately, and Scott and Dina, you saw this. This is a school that said their applications are up 30% year over year, and so that's not helping. So good luck. We're here to help.
Yes.
I want to talk about, because the questions are kind of slow right now. I want to talk about the NYU MD PhD kind of debacle that hit the internet last week. For those of you who don't know, Reddit was kind of lit a fire last week. The MD PhD program at NYU started rescinding acceptances for all of their students that they had accepted in their MD PhD program. And those acceptances were continued for the MD program. So they basically were like, hey, you're not accepted into our MD PhD program anymore. We're sorry, but your MD acceptance still holds. There was lots of speculation that they didn't get funding renewed or anything else, which potentially could have happened, leading to a mid-cycle, right, firestorm. This is super unusual. And lots of people online are like, oh my gosh, this is setting a bad precedent. I'm like, there's no precedent being set here. This is a completely one-of-one situation. I just, your immediate reaction to that, Scott, I'll start with you. Your immediate reaction to a school mid-cycle going, hey, we're shutting down our program, basically. We're not taking any new acceptances.
Well, this is a really awful situation, clearly. I mean, NYU or any other medical school would not have wanted this to happen. And this is clearly just a horrible event for the students and for the school as well. My first reaction to this is I think the honorable thing for the school to have done would have been to pony up the cash and said, we will do the people that we made offers to,
Yep.
but we're shutting it down thereafter. I mean, these are medical schools that have $billion budgets and stuff, and yet, anyway. So I think that would have been a more realistic, ethical, honorable thing to have done from the school perspective. Now, it's easy for me to say that. I don't, I'm not the accountant at the school going, where are we going to find the money?
Yeah. I mean, they have the money, right? NYU was the first big school that went tuition free, not necessarily from a big donation, but because their whatever that fund is called, their what is that called? Their
endowment.
Their endowment is just so big that they have plenty of
money.
But
their MSTP, so their PhD portion is funded by NIH.
Part of it, and that was part of the discussion, was I had a discussion with their director of or dean of admissions rather, and it still sounds like the school is ponying up some money, and I don't know all of the ins and outs of the funding, but it led. So yes, I agree. Right, if it was just a matter of funding, I would assume NYU had the funds to just say, "Oops, let's bite the bullet on this last class, and then we'll regroup." Having that discussion, and it was kind of off the record. I felt like a reporter. He's like, "This is off the record." I'm good. So I won't divulge anything. But it was just interesting to hear the conversation and potential change in what they're going to do for their MD PhD program. Basically, coming back to first principles thinking of like, what is the goal of MD PhD training? And if the goal of MD PhD training is to train MD PhDs and get more physician scientists, I think the thought is, from his perspective, they're not doing a good job of doing that. We're training, we're spending lots of time and money to train people when potentially ultimately they come out and they're quote unquote just typical MDs. Right. They actually aren't physician scientists. And so how do we rethink this training program to get more physician scientists who actually are doing physician scientist work? So it was a very interesting conversation. I'm very excited to see if they follow through on shaking things up. So we shall see. But yeah, anyone affected by it, obviously, lots of people were posting and commenting that, like, I knew someone that was accepted and they withdrew all of their other interviews and acceptances, and now they're kind of left stranded. And it's just like, ooh, that does
hurts.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think a lot of students do the MSTP program specifically for the funding. They actually don't want to be physician scientists. They just want to go to medical school for free. And they have the experiences and grades and everything else to be accepted. So we'll see.
It's a long haul for free medical school.
Oh, it's a long haul, and it's competitive. And I mean,
hyper competitive.
Like, I think we work with a lot of students who, maybe have one research experience and one publication. And they're like, I'm doing an MD PhD, and I'm like, there's like 5 seats. Like, you're not getting in.
And then I get an email that says, Dina said I can't get into med school.
Yeah, I'm the bad guy. I'm the bad guy all the time. Sorry.
They're like, Ryan, you're so positive. Your team members are so negative.
Well, they don't look up the data first. Like, you can look up how many seats every program has. Right? You can look up on Instagram pages the bios of the 5 to 8 students that are in the MSTP program and what they've researched and what they're doing. Like, can you compare with that? Like, you have to understand what the programs entail. I'm always the bad guy. It's okay.
Our friend Vanity Nutrition saying this is what you can expect from Application Academy. Awesome.
Aww.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Luke, how do med schools view engineering majors? Is there any difference compared to traditional pre-med tracks? No. They're not.
Nope.
There's too much data being thrown out there of like,
Yeah.
how do you account for grade deflation schools versus grade inflation schools versus hard majors versus easy majors, hard schools versus easy schools. So anyway. All right. I'm just putting up a banner here for Application Academy preview. That. All right. To keep the questions coming. Do you have to have 15?
I love it. I know.
No.
I'm gonna get this question.
You don't have to have 15. 13, I think, is okay. If you had
13's okay.
3, that'd be different.
And you can incorporate a hobby. I think
Yep.
one hobby.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I recommend
A
a hobby.
hobby.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John Peter, can you talk a little bit about the value of pre-med conferences?
Wow.
Anyone from MSHQ going to the Stanford SUMA conference? I've never been to the SUMA
The
conference.
days are over.
Have you been, Dina?
It was online.
Yeah.
It was virtual. So, I mean, there were some great students, who came, and you can register online for the SUMA conference. You do have to pay to attend, which is, come on, Stanford.
Stanford.
But
especially for the mission of that specific conference. Be like, why are we charging for it?
Yeah. I think all pre-med conferences had value because you're meeting people, other pre-meds, right? You're learning about, you're learning about programs. There were a lot of workshops and a lot of presenters. So I think that, it's valuable. The SUMA one, it's in person on campus this year in February. So,
well, let me just talk about the power of in-person. I don't think either of you would be here right now if we hadn't met in person.
Nope.
Right. So Scott, you and I met
at a conference.
At a conference in Toronto. Dina, you and I met in person at a conference here in Denver. We were familiar with each other before then, but it's the power of being in person and going, oh, this person is real. And right, I could have faked the interactions as much as possible and put on a facade. I typically am not good at doing that anyway. But the power of being in person and going, oh, this person, I like their vibe, I like their energy, I like everything going on. It's awesome. Like there is power there. And I know we benefited a lot, and there's still benefits of going virtual for interviews for medical schools and the time saved and money saved and all that stuff for students. But if you can get out and meet people in person at conferences or wherever, keep doing it. There's tremendous value in human to human in-person connection.
Yeah, and I would add to that too, that I think that for a student going to a conference, I think they need to have a dual perspective. They need to go with the expectation and the goal that they're going to learn a lot, that they are going to learn a lot at the conference from other pre-meds, from the presentations, from, interacting with the schools and getting to know the schools better and, stuff like that. So they're going to get a lot of great information. And then the other perspective, which is what you're talking about, Ryan, which is the FaceTime with the admissions officers and stuff like that. And there's a value to that. But I also want to be clear that, sometimes if it's a really well publicized conference, pre-med conference, a table of a medical school, they may see 200-300 people, in that period of time. And so they're not going to remember all 300 people. But so I think you have to have expectations about what you're going to do, why you're going there, and that the only reason is not just to impress the admissions officer and stuff, but you're going also to get information and get, find out stuff that you can grow by as a person. So I think go in with that expectation as well is really would really be beneficial.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep. 100%.
And the other one in California, if John Peter lives in California,
Davis,
is
yeah.
UC Davis. And I mean, I have a few students I work with that I really encouraged to they were in Southern California that flew up there in November, and they said, the lines were long at the tables, but they were able to make some connections where admission reps were like, shoot me an email so I can check on your application. And, sometimes that's all it takes. And I think also just being with other pre-meds sometimes is really helpful in this process.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So go ahead.
I used to go to the UC Davis conference. I went for several years in a row and would have meetups, and there's a Thai restaurant in Davis that we would go to every year. And I stopped going. I wonder if we should go back again, especially now that we're not doing MapsCon in person. Yeah. And again, in person, I reached out to a student. I basically was like, hey, I'm coming to the conference. I need a student to help me while I'm there. Right. This is when things were starting to get a little bit busier for me. And I was being more recognized by pre-med students. And so my table was going to be busy. So I needed a student to help me. And that student ended up being the first student that I hired to kind of help me continue to grow the business. And that was like 2015, I think. So the power of in-person. I saw her work ethic, and I saw just her ability to connect with other students and all this stuff. So awesome. Albert, another Academy member here, got accepted over winter break. Everyone join Application Academy. It will help throughout the cycle.
Congrats, Albert. I'm so happy for you.
That's awesome. Congrats.
Yeah, I liken it a little bit to like our one-on-one advising. If someone wanted to work with you, Scott, one-on-one, it's very expensive. No doubt about it. Application Academy is super affordable for almost everyone. And we do have the ability to do FAP pricing for Application Academy as well. All that's on the website, applicationacademy.com. Super valuable to be able to, it's not one-on-one, but to be able to get our expertise and guidance and critiques on essays and stuff. It's huge. I think it's the most valuable thing we do.
Yeah.
Great job, Albert. Lorena, I'm a preceptor at work as an MA. Should I list it separately? I went to a few conferences, but they are years ago. Does it count to put them down? All right, so 2 questions here. Dina, person works as an MA, but they're also a preceptor at MA. So I'm assuming that means they're training other MAs, kind of supervising other MAs.
I would list it as a leadership role. You just can't double dip hours. So think about how many hours you put in as a preceptor, and then list it as leadership.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then conferences a few years ago, put on the application.
Depends what they are. I mean, you could list them separately as its own entry for conferences, or just you can work it into the preceptor entry.
Yeah. Well, and I also think it depends on what years ago means. If it was 3 years ago, sure. If it was 10 years ago, maybe not.
True.
So I think about proximity.
Yep. Garrett, I'm a little confused between clinical experience and clinical volunteering. Do you need both, or what's the main difference? So I'll use one of my favorite sayings, this style of saying. All clinical volunteering is clinical experience. Not all clinical experience is clinical volunteering. So clinical can be either volunteer or paid. They're both clinical experiences. Do you need both? No. Although UCF does say, as part of their admissions process, because I had Laurel, the director of admissions, on the Premed Years podcast several months ago, they do value non-paid or volunteer clinical experience as part of their admissions process, which I disagree with, but it's their rules. Their house, their rules.
Right.
Abraham. With regards to trying to be proactive and pre-writing secondaries, what approach would you recommend? Would you recommend going off last cycle's prompts or just writing general answers? Scott, we talk a lot about this. We're not fans of general answers because the prompts are so specific. So last cycle.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. For most of the medical schools, their prompts don't radically change year to year. Sometimes, they'll totally do an overhaul and change it. But I would say best alternative is to work off of last year's. And if you do that, then you'll get a sense, you'll start collecting verbiage that will be applicable to other schools that you can kind of use bits and pieces of it, and reformatting it for their specific question. But so you'll begin getting into a rhythm, and this is the question that I answered from that other school, and it's applicable here with a little tweaking and stuff like that. So I definitely would say go off of last year's prompts.
Yeah, love it. John Peter, join an application academy. We'll see you there. That's awesome.
Woohoo!
Nice, see you there.
Awesomeness.
All right. How do AdComs value leadership experience in non-medical corporate roles? Dina, it's kind of a impossible question to answer, right? How are they going to value it? I don't know. It's right. Whatever their process is. I think the thing to pick apart here is, does it make a difference that leadership is non-medical versus medical?
I mean, I think leadership is leadership, and admission committees want to see that you have the ability to lead a team, to organize things, that people can turn to you, that you can, in times of need, you can, sparse things out, or you can utilize resources, all things that can translate to medicine. And I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
That you weren't just like stuck in a library for 4 years.
It reminds me,
in a cubicle.
It reminds me, a non-traditional student I worked with many years ago, applied to medical school, didn't get in. I looked at his application and he had 3 experiences on his application. And I was just like, you've been out of school for 9 years, 10 years, whatever it was. What have you been doing with your time? And he goes, well, I worked at Walmart and I did this. Like, I was a manager at Walmart. I'm like, that's not on your application. He's like, well, it's not medical. I'm like, oh no. Right. So the application is not just medical experiences. The application is trying to capture a snapshot of who you've been and who you are, big picture, not just in medical settings. And so, yeah.
And when you put down those non-medical experiences, don't feel like you have to somehow connect it with medicine.
Yeah.
Well, the way this will impress, don't just say what you learned, but it doesn't have to necessarily, you don't have to say and the way this applies to medicine. Yeah.
Don't need that. Glyco CD44 sounds like some protein. I currently work full-time in the same research lab since 2021, have more than 4,000 hours of research. I have 700 hours of clinical hours as a phlebotomist from 21 to 23. Should I leave research and find another clinical job? All right, Scott, stacking the hours, checking the boxes. Is there a perfect formula for a student to follow?
No, there's no formula. And Glyco, what I would just say is, if you're enjoying your research job, if it works for you, whatever, you've got a lot of clinical hours. Now, I would say if you're applying this year, you're 2 years away from your clinical hours,
Mhm.
that could be an issue with some medical school admissions committees. You know, what did you just feel like you kind of checked that box, and so now you're not doing it anymore? I mean, it could appear that way. So I would say you know, maybe not quit your job to find a clinical job, but maybe outside of your job, do some volunteering you know, clinical volunteering and stuff, and just get your, you know, you just want to make sure that you're showing that, you know, you're compelled to do this, and that they're showing that in your activities. That's what I would say, probably.
Yeah, I generally push back on kind of this super black and white thinking. Like
Right,
to get clinical experience, I have to quit my research job. Like, no,
right,
getting clinical
no,
experience does not mean you have to work 40 hours a week doing it. So
right, that's right.
you can find some balance there.
Yeah.
All right, friends, we're going to end there. Awesome first session for 2025. Again, Application Academy starting on 1/20. Go to applicationacademy.com. The first cohort sessions will be Monday and Wednesday. We will be starting a second cohort. That information is not on the website, but that'll be starting later in March to allow for people that are taking a later MCAT to join and start Application Academy. And then after a while, both of those cohorts will kind of mix together, and we'll have some awesome time there. So applicationacademy.com/preview to come check it out next week for free to see what it's all about. Keep in mind, next week during the free sessions, it's going to be much busier than it normally is as well. So we'll have fun, and hopefully you can learn something and you'll join us.
Yeah.
Scott, Dina, thank you so much for joining me today.
Welcome.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.